Hey everybody, it's Chris. Got another survivor healing story for you. This is Terry Dale. Terry was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2014 and made a decision to change her life, take control of her health, and she got well. And I'm excited to share her story. She's also a Healing Strong group leader, which we'll talk about. Healing Strong. If you don't know what that is, you need to know. And so anyway, hi Terry.
Hi, Chris. So great to be here and talk to you today.
Well, it's great to have you on. I always get excited to share new healing stories because even though Chris Beat Cancer has my name in it, it really is not about me at all. It's about a much bigger message, and that is cancer can be healed. And the more people whose stories I can share, the more the world will believe that healing is possible.
Absolutely. We always have those critics out there that don't think it's possible. You know how that goes.
I do. There will always be critics. Not worried about those, but I am worried about the folks that are on the fence and they need hope and encouragement and inspiration and information that they can use to help themselves. And that's why I do what I do, is to reach those people. So let's hear your story.
First of all, I just wanted to start this whole process by saying, thank you. You were actually the entire reason why I was able to start a process of healing my cancer holistically. Now, my backstory about me is that I've been a holistic health coach for 20 years. I rarely specialize in weight loss, diabetes, fibromyalgia, all these people that come to me for that kind of thing. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was like, what the what? I mean, how does somebody like me get cancer? Honestly, I'm healthy. I have a really good faith in God. Not saying that you can't get sick if you have faith, but I'm just saying, that was where my mentality was like, how does somebody like me get sick? Because I was eating right. I was exercising. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I mean, I treat my body so well. So when I got it, I was devastated, angry, mad, scared to death because all I knew was that chemo was my option. I didn't know anything because I never had to learn about cancer. None of my clients had cancer. It was new to me. Nobody in my family, nothing. So when I was diagnosed, and it was a terrible, the whole process was terrible because the information and the meetings with doctors and my oncologists were just scary, and they were pushing me in to try to do all these things. And so when I was diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, I decided that I was going to go holistic. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just felt as a leader of being a holistic health coach, I want to practice what I preach because all of my clients who come to me with other diseases, I try to get them off medications and do everything holistically. So that began my journey, but I was like, how do I do it? Where do I go? What do I do? So of course I went to the website or the online, arena, and you came up. And I just want to say that this was back before you had written your book, before you had developed your amazing Square One program. I wish I would have had it at that time. But anyway, I went to your website and you had so much information on there. And I just was like a sponge. And I think I stayed up all night one night after I got diagnosed, after I found you. And it just was reading and trying to whatever. And I ended up finding Truth About Cancer series through you. So of course I bought that. I watched it all, and that began my journey into feeling secure enough and confident enough to be able to do it holistically. I didn't know how I was going to do it yet, but at least having the stories and the information of other people doing it gave me hope. And that's what made my decision. And I never turned back after that. I never turned back and I told myself, no matter what people say, no matter what people tell me, no matter all the critics that I get, any of that, I was not going to go down the chemo route. And trust me, I had pressure. Like my oncologist, I audio recorded all of my conversations with my oncologist because I knew I would be so nervous. And actually, I only met with her once because it was a fiasco, a whole appointment. She knew nothing about holistic, nothing about any treatments, nothing. She couldn't. She even told me and confessed to me during our first meeting that if she told me anything or recommended anything holistic, she would lose her medical license. So I said, okay, well, if you're not even going to do an assessment on me, not do blood work, ask me any questions, and just read out of a manual how you're going to treat my cancer with chemo and bring me down to the door next, the room next door and get me a wig, and you don't even ask me any questions. You throw me and say I got to start chemo next week. I didn't feel comfortable with any of those answers, so I walked out of there and I'm like, my decision's made. And so I just started, just really coming up with a protocol for myself. And in 9 months, I was able to totally have a clean PET scan, no nodules anywhere. It's gone, and it's been gone, and I feel amazing. And I still to this day, Chris, I'm on pretty much a similar protocol as I was when I was diagnosed. I haven't changed it. I don't want it to come back, and I don't fear it's going to come back. But I know that you have to create an environment in your body that where your immune system stays strong, and I never want to risk that. And plus, I've trained my body now to eat right and exercise and do certain things and treatments that I just don't miss. I don't miss anything else. I just don't miss it.
So how did you find out that you had cancer?
I had a lump in my neck.
Okay. And so what was the next step for you?
So after I got the lump in my neck, I was in denial, of course, and I was like, I don't think I have cancer. It must be a swollen node or whatever. So I was encouraged to go in and get it biopsied, so I did. When I got it biopsied, the first biopsy came back negative. So they weren't happy with that answer, and so they sent it off to another pathology, two actually, and the third one came back positive. But to backtrack that a little bit, so when
did that make you question that any of them were?
Yes,
accurate?
Of course. Yes,
so two out of three said it wasn't cancer, and then one said it was. Yeah, that's got to be.
It was horrible, But then then I had to look back at also the PET scan or I had the CT scan first, and I had multiple, I think, who knows? I almost wonder if sometimes there's a conspiracy and doctors are just like reading these scans fast, or who knows, whatever. I just had to believe that, if there's multiple locations and the biopsy came back, whatever. I just treated my body like it had cancer. And, and so when I went in for surgery, though, this is what I wanted to share with you too, just about questioning the medical arena. We hired a specialist, an ear, nose, and throat specialist, to be able to remove this, because it's in a spot where it affects the nerves of your mouth. It affects your, there's a lot of really important anatomy right in that spot. So we hired a specialist, of ear, nose, and throat specialist, to remove the swollen lymph node. Went in on a Friday, he removed it. Went back in on a Wednesday for the follow-up appointment, and I'm like, well, what's the news? And he's like, well, good news, bad news. I'm like, what is it? He's like, good news is we found no cancer in the, I don't even know what he said. He said the organ. He says, but the bad news is I didn't take out the lymph node. I took out the wrong organ. I took out your saliva gland. You would not want to have been in that room, because my husband was livid. I became silent, of course, and shocked, and just like what just happened. My husband, that's another story. He was angry. So I had to go back into immediate emergency surgery that following Friday, and then they removed the right one and additional ones, I guess, and whatever. But, the whole process was just felt like I was just being treated like nobody really knew what they were doing, and it was just, everything was cold, and it was just a traumatic time, which makes me really empathetic now when I help my clients, of course, when they deal with doctors with anything, because it just makes me realize that they're not as, can I say this? They're not the know-it-alls. They don't know.
Well, we know that already. I mean, but yeah. And the big problem is it's really difficult to make a living as a doctor. And the only way you can make a living is to see as many patients as possible, to cram as many patient visits into every day as possible. And, they're just overloaded, overwhelmed, they're rushed. They, don't have time to really pay attention to you, right? They're just trying to get you in and out. It's like a restaurant, right? Just trying to turn those tables over. And that's why mistakes happen. Right? That's why American healthcare is ranked like 37th in the world. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's just crazy how many
Well,
countries have better ranked healthcare than the U.S. And that you know, just another example of the kind of just blunderous mistakes that can happen. That, you know, took out the wrong thing. I'd just be glad they didn't just amputate your nose or something stupid, right?
well, and the fact that I found out that that oncologist, the reason why she was so pushing me so aggressively into doing chemo that next week is because they get a direct percentage or kickback. She would have made between 8 and 10 grand in her pocket if I would have decided to do chemo. So that right there in itself really upset me because I'm like, that's kind of, to me, it was just, it's like, how about you care about your patients and not, why does that have to be the driving force to push people into chemo? So I don't know, it's a little unethical if you ask my opinion. But then again, not all doctors are unethical. But
it's a system that is built in a way that unfortunately incentivizes oncologists to prescribe drugs because 2/3 a private practice oncologists make up to 2/3 of their income off of the markup on chemo drugs. So they profit off the drugs they prescribe you. So like, okay, if I prescribe these drugs, I make money. If I don't, then I don't.
Yeah.
Like, what would you do? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, oh, this is how I make money is I have to get patients to take chemo. So yeah,
Right.
it's things are changing. So to give credit where it's due, things are changing. The government has tried multiple ways to try to disincentivize chemo prescriptions, and oncologists have found workarounds. I talk about this in detail in my book. But yeah, it's not the doctors so much as it just is the system. It's just a badly organized system, and patients are suffering as a result. And doctors are too. I mean, doctors have the highest rate of suicide of any profession.
Wow.
Because it's so difficult emotionally, physically, mentally. It's so difficult. And, at the end of the day, the money they're making, for a lot of them, it isn't worth it. It is not worth the mental and emotional anguish, right? And so I really do feel for doctors too. I mean, some doctors are just awful, right? There are awful doctors out there. They're just awful people. There's awful people in every profession. Some of them are doctors. But by and large, I think most doctors and people in the medical industry are good and they want to do good. And they're just trapped in a system that makes it very hard.
Yeah. It definitely is a flawed system, like you said. And, when you go into the doctor, especially if you have cancer, you want to be able to spend some time with your doctor, right? You trust them. And she literally, my doctor, although I respected her and I was very respectful towards her, she literally was only spent like 15 minutes with me, and I'm like, really? That's all I get? I have a life-threatening disease here and I get 15 minutes of your time and you want to push me into doing chemo? I mean, it was just, I spend more time with my clients when they come in for weight loss and diabetes. I spend an hour with them and talking with them about their situation. I had 15 minutes. Right. And mine's cancer. So it's so flawed. And I get it. Like you said, they're busy and they can't, they just don't have time and they want to push you in off on doing what the treatment is. But I'm so glad that you're just an advocate and you just educate people about this because people don't know until it's too late, and then they're scrambling and they're rushing and it's just yeah. Ugh. Anyway.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, many people they don't have the wake up moment, the light bulb moment until, not necessarily it's too late, but until they've made some decisions they regret, right? Sometimes it's too late, but many times they just have realized like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I let them do to me? It didn't even help. Now what? Right. And so I hear those kind of, those kind of statements from people all of the time. And so what I try to do is, just kind of bridge that gap between the little to no information you get from your doctor on health and nutrition and healing, right?
Which is
and
nothing.
the vast amount of it that exists. So I'm trying to just bring that to the public eye. And again, for anybody listening that, there's always people finding me for the first time and like, who's this guy? I am not one to say don't do chemotherapy. It's an individual choice. Everybody needs to investigate it thoroughly and decide if it makes sense for them. But whatever you do, don't let somebody rush you into a treatment that can be potentially destructive and harmful that you don't even understand, and that you only got 15 minutes, right, to talk about your doctor with, right? 15 minutes, here you go. You need chemo. I mean, that's how it goes for most patients, and it really is tragic. Okay, so you had surgery. The surgery was botched. Then they put you back in surgery, and they took it out this time.
Yep, and that's when they had they sent it off to pathology. Then the actual lymph node, now the right one, because the saliva gland was fine. So they took the lymph node and they sent it off to, the first place was the University of Minnesota here in Minnesota, and they said it was negative. And then they sent it to another place here in Minnesota. They said it was negative. So then they sent it to the Mayo, and Mayo said it was cancer. And then I was like, well, I'm not 2-1. I mean, I don't like this answer. So then we sent it to the University of Michigan, which is supposed to be pathology labs for cancer in the country. And they concurred that it was lymphoma. So after that, then my journey started. I was still in the back of my mind thinking, do I really have it? Because I waited for like 3 months after I even had the surgery to find out. It was just terrible. It was just terrible.
Yeah, the agony of waiting is so tough. The anxiety and all that. So what made you decide not to do chemotherapy?
That's such a great question, and I do get that question asked of me quite a bit. I have been in the holistic health industry for 20 years. I'm a diabetes and lifestyle and weight loss coach. And a lot of my clients that come to me are sick, right? And they don't feel well. So I try to get them off medications. Okay. So, when I got cancer, I was like, how does somebody like me get cancer? I wanted to learn about it because I felt like I would be, honestly, this might be a little bit of pride. I don't know. Not really. But I didn't want to set an example of, here's me, a holistic health coach, and here's me going and doing treatment, when I try to get my clients, and I practice what I preach by doing everything really holistically and not taking medications, when necessary. So I wanted to find out if chemo was really necessary. I didn't know. I thought chemo was my only option. So when I learned it wasn't my only option via the Truth About Cancer and your website, then it just made my decision easy, because I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm strong, and whatever happens, and plus I prayed about it, and God gave me such a peace about it. I mean, that was the biggest thing after I got over my anger and my despair. I just prayed about it, and I said, Lord, bring me the resources, bring me what it is that you want me to do. And in my heart, I really want to do this holistically, because that's my nature. That's what I've done all my life, but you have to help me make this decision. And of course, that's, he brought me the resources through you and through the Truth About Cancer and other people. And so I just decided, and after I made the decision, once I made the decision, no brainer. I went 100 miles an hour with researching everything holistic and starting right away.
So what did you do first?
So the first thing I did is just change my diet. Now, like I told you before, I was eating pretty good, so I thought, but I was a big protein eater. And so when I learned that protein feeds cancer, I went on an all vegan, all plant-based diet right away immediately. And that was at first kind of challenging because, I was a meat eater, chicken, fish, and all that. So for the first 90, 120 days, I was all vegan. Non-cooked, like raw vegan.
All raw vegan. Yep.
All raw vegan.
Which is what I did. 90 days raw. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I did that for about 6 months, right? And then I did the hyperbaric. I made my a home in my an office in my home, my treatment room. So I have an infrared sauna in there. I have a hyperbaric chamber, a rebounder, and then the Rife machine. So I sleep with the Rife machine every night. So that was my treatment. But then I also, supplements. Did like curcumin and vitamin D and, all of that stuff. So again, just really cleaning up my diet to make sure that my immune system was as the strongest it could be. Did some of the external treatments like hyperbaric chamber, Rife, and rebounding and sauna. And then worked on, this is something I haven't talked about yet, which is very important, is my stress. I 100% believe that my cancer was caused by my stress. And
what type of stress specifically?
I am a type A, go, 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 and I was not giving my body a lot of rest, a lot of internal stress, a lot of relational stress with owning a business, and it was a high emotional and just stress, financial. I mean, just running a business. You know this, but I had a brick and mortar. I did, and it was growing and growing, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So once I got diagnosed with cancer, and I found out that I was clean of cancer, I sold my business because I just had to learn how to manage my stress better. And so now my whole life is about really managing that. I still to this day still pretty much vegan, but I do some cook now and some protein, but very minimal. I still do my Rife machine and my hyperbaric chamber, not every day, but I still do that. So I haven't changed a lot of what I did, just not as strict.
Yeah. How often were you doing hyperbaric?
Every day.
Once a day?
Every day, once a day.
Were you
90
doing like
for an
90
hour.
minutes?
I was just an hour.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And then what type of Rife machine did you buy?
It's just the kind that's in the tube. It measures your frequency. I'm not sure the brand, but it was one that was programmed through a specialist here in Minnesota. And it's, what a Rife machine is, of course you do, but it's one that is it's programmed so that what it does is it measures every cell in our body has a frequency, even the cancer cells and the healthy cells. So the philosophy behind that Royal Rife developed back in the day was that he was able to kill disease and cancer cells by matching up the same frequency of the cell, so that it causes friction and the cells slough off and die. So so that's what it is. It's a frequency machine, and I still
just
sleep
for
with that
anybody that is trying to wrap their head around this. So if you vibrate any molecule at the right frequency, you can destroy it. So I think everyone has seen the opera singer, shattering glass kind of thing. So it's the same principle. And there are certain frequencies that are thought to destroy viruses, bacteria, cancer cells, and different things like that. So that was what Rife was investigating. Also Hulda Clark, very well known for this as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, perfectly said. And again, the Rife machine, it's just like everything else, the hyperbaric chamber, Rife machine, all that's very controversial. But you know what? For me, I just wanted to do what I felt and what I felt was really going to make me feel better and just do whatever I could. I kind of just wanted to do everything, right?
Yeah.
So, and the research, like you're really well researched, but I've researched everything that I've done. And so I just, I'm very confident in everything that I put in my body and I do for me. Might not be, certain things everybody else does might not be for them. But again, it's just about doing whatever you can to build up that immune system and to keep it strong. That's the whole key.
Absolutely. The nice thing about therapies like Rife or even hyperbaric oxygen is there's almost zero risk of harm, especially with Rife. I mean, it's frequency. It's not, it's not going to electrocute you, radiate you, anything like that. For folks that wanted to learn more about Rife, are there links you could share? We can put below the interview, stuff like that.
Absolutely. I will provide you with links for the research that I did on Rife. Also, in my book, I have a book here that I'm actually giving a PDF copies away for free to anybody that wants this. I don't, coach people on cancer. I'm a diabetes and weight loss coach and a fibromyalgia coach. So this is just a story about my journey, but it has my entire treatment, what I did, and a whole section here on the Rife machine so people can read up on it. I will gladly send the link for your readers if they want a free copy of it. Go
Great.
for it. So yes, and I think my biggest message, Chris, even in my book, and I know you'll agree with me, but I just, for anybody that has cancer or gets diagnosed, I just tell them, slow down. When you first when you first get diagnosed and your doctor immediately wants to start you on chemo that day practically, I always just encourage people, whatever decision you make is up to you. You or me cannot tell people what to do, but we can encourage them to slow down and just research. Read your book, read my book, watch The Truth About Cancer. Slow down, take a week to just research both sides, because what people don't know is they don't know the holistic side. They just know the chemo side because that's what they're hearing from their doctors, and that's what's out there. So just take your time, slow down, because you really want to be confident whatever decision you make. Because when you're not confident and you have angst about whatever decision, it's just going to make it a lot harder. In fact, my husband was not on board with me doing holistic at first. My husband.
My wife wasn't either.
Right.
Right. Not in the beginning.
Until he started learning like me. He became like the guru researcher, right? And then once he also started learning, he became more confident. And then now, if you ask him now, he would say, I would never allow my wife to ever put her body through that. Whatever. But
yeah, things change. People change. And the people that are skeptical in the beginning, they do come around.
Yeah.
But it can be very hard emotionally, mentally, and emotionally when the people around you think you're crazy, and you feel like they don't support you because they don't understand. And even though they love you, they're not trying to make things more difficult, but things do get more difficult when people don't, when they don't understand. So I love what you said too about taking a step back and slowing down. I mean, that's so important. That's exactly what I did. And, you have to really take a comprehensive look at your life and your situation and think about, why am I sick? What's making me sick? What is wrong in my life? What can I improve? And for me, there was tons of stuff in my life that needed improvement. And I think about this, I have this picture in my head of when you're diagnosed with cancer, it's like the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indiana Jones, it's like the first scene where right when he realizes there's a giant stone ball, you know what I mean? Like rolling toward him. And that's exactly what it's like. It's like this panic. As soon as you're diagnosed, here comes the big ball rolling at you. And then it's just like your patients are just running for their life,
Yeah.
And when you're frantically just running and trying to not die, right? You can't really make rational, logical, thoughtful decisions, right? Because it's you're in fight or flight mode constantly. And that analogy just came to me in our conversation. I've never thought of it before, but I love it.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I swear. I've never talked about that before, but it just kind of occurred to me as you were talking about that. And I don't even know why, but it did. So, but it really is the way it is, And so, but it doesn't have to be that way. Right? If you're not induced into fear and panic and haste, right? And what some people call the tyranny of the urgent, then you can step back and make decisions that are probably much better for you. And you said something earlier about, I can't remember how you phrased it, but it stuck with me and now I've lost it. But anyway, it was just about how, again, stepping back, slowing down, right? That you have time, right? And you have options. And that's
I also think too, Kristen, I know you'll probably agree with me on this too, but when you get diagnosed, we say, I know it's a tough decision whether or not you're going to do chemo or holistic. I get that. And nobody can force anybody to do it either way. But
it doesn't have to be either or either.
Yeah, right. You can do both, right? But when you're well researched, and my opinion is this: it's like, okay, even if I decide chemo can always be an option, why not even start with a holistic program first? There's ways to measure, and there's markers that you can do with blood and urine and things like that, just to see if you're improving. So even if people start with a holistic, that might even just relieve some of the pressure. Just say, hey, let's start. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, then you can always resort to chemo, I guess. I mean, that's one philosophy. Now, of course, you'll get the critics that say, well, if you have, chemo and it's spreading and and I get all that. But again, once you're really educated in how cancer grows and the apoptosis cycle and all of that, it's not as scary if you look at it from a intelligent perspective and take the emotion and the fear out, like you said. So I think people just got to slow down. They've really got to dig in and make it a full-time job for a couple of weeks to research both, so they really understand what they're getting into. Then I think it helps with their decision also, either way.
It does. And that was my attitude about it. The way you described it was, well, I instinctively felt like chemo would do me more harm than good at my present state, physically, in my present state, I should say. And so I kind of put it on the back burner mentally, right? It wasn't like I'm never doing it, but I'm just not ready for this right now. And I want to change my whole life. I want to see if I can help my body heal. I want to overdose on nutrition, right? I want to take the holistic approach, which is let's try to heal the body, right? The whole thing, not just kill a cancer cell, which is the way the industry tends to approach the problem. And even if you're doing treatment, you can still take a holistic approach to health and give your body all the wonderful nutrition it gets from fruits and vegetables and juices, supplementation and other therapies like oxygen therapy. So again, it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. But that can make that could mean the difference between survival and death, right? Is what you do between treatments if you're doing chemo. The way you take care of yourself and support your body between treatments could make all the difference. Terry, I appreciate your time so much, and thanks for bearing with the technical difficulties that we've had. So,
that's technology for you, dude. Yes. I mean, it's just so annoying, but
yes, if you're watching this or listening to it on the podcast, you probably won't even know the difference other than a couple video cuts. But we've had some technical challenges that we have overcome. Anyway,
yes.
Thanks for taking your time to share your story. I know it's going to encourage a lot of people. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share with anyone if they're dealing with cancer or facing a diagnosis or whatever and trying to get well?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, Healing Strong is a national group of support system that you're a big part, you're a big part of, which I love. But Healing Strong is just a way for people with cancer, or not even without cancer. Even what we found in my group here in Minnesota is that a lot of the people who come here who have cancer, they bring their spouses as support because, I'm going to tell you, the spouses and the friends and your biggest supporter need that support also. So our group here in Minnesota is really geared towards just supporting both the cancer patient and the support person. So I wanted to mention too that even in our Healing Strong group, when it comes to people who are on chemo and are not on chemo, we have both. We have some people that are on chemo, and that's fine. And what we do is we just really try to encourage them to take some of the nutritional, holistic approaches while they're on chemo. It's so important that they do that. And so a lot of times in the Healing Strong groups, they're able to at least get that support when they're on chemo also and educate them. It's just an educational, supportive format and a platform for them to be able to voice their concerns and voice their fear, because I'm telling you, when you go through this, it's really hard to talk with people who don't know what you're going through. It's so hard. I actually lost quite a bit of a few friends when I had cancer because they didn't even know how to respond to me. They didn't support my decision in doing it holistically, and it's sad. So that's what I love about the Healing Strong support group is that it's national, and if you go to their website, you can punch in the state that you're from, and then you can look at all the different support groups around the country. But it's just a great way, a great platform for you to be able to go and learn not only about holistic approaches, but also it's just, it's so nice to have a support group of people where you can go and you can be uplifted and you can be encouraged and you can be able to talk to other people that know what you're going through.
Yeah, Healing Strong is awesome. And for any of you that you're not sure what it is, again, it's just a local support group model for holistic support. And you can go to healingstrong.org, learn all about it, do a search and find out if there's a Healing Strong group that meets in your city. If there is, great. If there isn't, consider starting your own. If you need support, if you start a Healing Strong support group, people will come to you. So, and you don't have to be, cancer free or even have cancer to do this, right? To start one of these support groups. And the curriculum's all laid out for you. All you have to do is be willing to open your home or give a little bit of your time once a month to get together. And you'll find it to be very rewarding, as you have, right, Terry?
Oh, it's great. It's a great platform for people to be able to come and just get to know one another. And I actually hear over and over again how much they look forward to it. They wish I would do it every week. And I'm like, well, I don't have time to do it every week, but it's a really good, and the curriculum is amazing. So yeah, I would just encourage anybody to join. It's awesome.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Terry. Thank you for offering your book up for free. We'll put a link to that below. And again, I just wish you more health and happiness and blessings. And thanks again.
Thank you, Chris, again, for all your work and everything that you've done. And thanks for letting me share my story. And I just hope it encourages and helps anybody who is struggling right now. So thanks again.
I know it will. And hey, everybody, thanks for watching. Please share this, like it, share it. Post your comments below. There are people in your life that need to know that cancer doesn't have to be a death sentence, that the body can heal it, and that there are people out there like me and Terry and so many others that have lived through and are alive and thriving and cancer-free now. So anyway, please share this video. Bye, everybody.